There have been 3 reports that have been open regarding my residence on Campbell Avenue, and I was wondering how you conduct investigations to find out about the crime there.
We try to get physical evidence that we can link to a suspect. If we can get serial numbers that can be traced back to the owner of the stuff that was stolen, or if we can find any physical evidence whenever the first arriving officer arrives on scene, they'll process it for fingerprints or whatever they do to look for anything to link to a suspect.
Okay. All right. Do you take fingerprints of the door and things like that?
Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. It kind of depends on the responding officer. You have to kind of take into consideration the surface. If it's a rough surface, sometimes prints won't stick to it or whatever. So it's kind of a judgment call on the officer if they do. They're not required to.
Okay, they're not required to take fingerprints. Okay, and then I had a friend tell me that 4 officers entered my home and were in there for an hour after he called 911 about the break-in. I was wondering what would take them an hour to do in my home.
I'm not sure.
You're not sure?
I'm not sure. I don't know the extent of the case there. I'm not sure.
Is the burglary that happened at my home, that was an incident report was made on April 9th of this year, is that going to be investigated?
It's been reviewed, and I don't think there's any physical evidence that can be linked to a person at this time.
Is it going to be investigated?
If evidence comes up later that can be linked to somebody, the case can be reopened, but I believe the case right now is suspended due to a lack of evidence.
So the case is suspended? No investigation?
It can be reopened at any time, but there's no physical evidence, there's no leads to follow up on right now, to my knowledge.
When I first asked for all the reports in my home back in May and June of 2016, I received all the reports that there were. There were 5 of them. I was told by the receptionist at SPD that none of them were under investigation. After I asked for copies of those reports that occurred at my home, which I made myself to document crime, 2 break-ins, and I think there was a injury to my eye from a laser point that was used at my neighbor's house to the north. Different incident reports like that. I was wondering why 3 of them were open for investigation after I asked for copies. Okay, you're not sure?